The sky over Willow Creek was dressed in a blanket of gray. A cold drizzle pattered gently on the rooftop of Sonny's diner. The kind of place where time felt slower and regulars were treated like family.
Yes.
The smell of warm butter sizzling, bacon and cinnamon-spiced coffee danced through the air, wrapping the space in a cozy kind of silence. Behind the counter, Mia Hart, 25, moved quickly, balancing 2 plates on one arm while scribbling an order with the other. Her chestnut hair was pulled back into a bouncy ponytail, tucked neatly under a red Endilo cap that matched her apron.
Ow.
Her sneakers squeaked softly on the checkered floor, a little tired, a little overworked, but always smiling to most customers. She was just the friendly waitress who remembered how you liked your eggs. But to Cal, her 13-year-old brother waiting at home after school, she was everything: his sister, his guardian, his cook, and sometimes his therapist. Since their parents' sudden car accident 2 years ago, Mia had put her dreams of design, school on the shelf, and picked up 2 jobs to keep them afloat. Sonny's diner was her safe haven, her battlefield and her sanctuary all rolled into one. She was just pouring coffee for a grumpy trucker named Gene when the front door creaked open. A gust of cold wind swept in, carrying with it the scent of rain and something else, something older, sadder. An elderly man stepped in, soaked from head to toe. His coat hung loosely on his bony shoulders, and his hands trembled as he pushed the door shut behind him. His white hair was wet and wispy, and he wore mismatched gloves, one wool, one leather. Mia's eyes flicked to him immediately. He didn't look homeless, but he carried the weight of loneliness like a heavy coat. People around the diner barely looked up, too busy with their own lives. But Mia, she noticed everything. She walked around the counter with a small towel in her hands. "Sir, are you all right? Let me help you." The old man looked up, startled, as though kindness was a language he hadn't heard in years. "Just need a place to sit. And maybe warm up a little," he said quietly, his voice raspy but gentle, of course. "Right this way," Mia said, leading him to the corner booth by the fogged-up window, the one nobody liked to sit in because it was always colder. She handed him the towel, then placed a menu gently in front of him. "Take your time, okay?" He smiled faintly and nodded. She turned to leave but paused as she noticed him staring not at the menu, but outside into nothing. She came back moments later with a glass of water and a cup of fresh black coffee. "You didn't ask?" "But trust me," she said, setting it down with a soft grin. "You look like someone who needs something warm." He looked up again, blinking slowly. "That obvious, huh?" Lightly, the sound like a soft chime in a church. "I'm Mia, by the way," she said. He hesitated, then replied, Hank Rowley." "Well, Mr. Rowley, anything you want today is on the house." His brow furrowed. No, I don't need charity. It's not charity," Mia cut in kindly. "It's kindness. It's considered a rainy day special." Something in Hank's face cracked, then not in a way that made him cry, but like a wall had finally been chipped. "You're too kind, miss," he murmured. "People these days, they don't do that." "Well, they should," she said simply. She returned minutes later with a steaming slice of homemade apple pie. The crust golden brown, the filling bubbling slightly with cinnamon and sugar. A scoop of vanilla ice cream melted gently beside it. Hank's hands trembled as he took the fork. As he brought the first bite to his mouth, something shifted in his eyes. A pause, a swallow, and then tears, silent and slow, pooled behind his eyes. "My wife used to make pie like this," he whispered, voice shaking. "We'd sit on the porch in the fall. She'd cut it warm and we'd watch the leaves drift." Mia sat across from him, her shift momentarily forgotten. "Where is she now?" she asked gently. "Gone," he said. "Been gone almost 20 years. Cancer took her in 6 months. After that, I kind of faded. I lost touch with my daughter after she moved. Haven't seen her in over a decade. I don't even know if she's alive." Mia didn't say "I'm sorry." She'd learned that sometimes silence paired with presence was the most powerful comfort. They sat there for a long time, talking about small things, gardens, old songs, the price of gas in 1975. Hank's voice grew steadier with each story, and Mia laughed at his dry humor. He told her about a car he once rebuilt with his bare hands and how his wife never trusted the brakes. When the slice was gone and his coffee cup empty, Hank slowly stood. "You gave me more than pie today, Mia," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small wooden button and placed it on the table. "From my wife's sewing kit. She always said to leave a piece of yourself behind with those who treat you kindly." Mia stared at the button, simple, worn, but deeply personal. I don't know what to say," she murmured. "Just keep being you," he said with a wink. "There aren't many like you left." With that, he walked back into the rain, leaving behind only a damp chair and the faint scent of old cologne. The next morning at Sonny's diner began like any other. The coffee was strong, the air thick with chatter, and the smell of fried eggs and buttered toast wrapped the small diner in a warm haze. Mia Hart was back behind the counter, her ponytail bouncing slightly as she slid across the floor with practiced grace. She was halfway through refilling old Jean's mug when something outside caught her eye. A black and white cruiser had pulled up to the curb. It didn't park like a cop on lunch break. It settled with purpose, slow and deliberate. Two uniformed officers stepped out, one older, with gray streaks in his beard, the other young and straight-backed. The moment they entered, a hush fell over the room. Even the sizzling grill in the back seemed quieter. Mia's stomach tightened. The older officer approached the counter. "Excuse me, miss, are you Mia Hart?" Her throat dried instantly. "Yes. Is something wrong?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sealed manila envelope, setting it gently on the counter between them like it held something fragile. "I'm Officer Danner. This is Officer Lowe. We're here on behalf of a Mr. Hank Raleigh." Mia blinked. "Hank? You served him yesterday?" She nodded slowly. "Came in from the rain. Looked a little lost. I gave him a slice of pie." "Why?" Officer Danner's voice softened. "He passed away last night." The words hit her like a blow to the chest. "What?" "He had a heart condition," the younger officer added quietly. "From what we gathered, he'd been ill for a while, but chose not to seek medical help. He died peacefully in his sleep at the room he rented on Ellison Street." Mia's hand flew to her chest. The diner sounds faded into the background as her eyes locked onto the envelope. "Before he passed, he left a note. A will? You're named in it." I barely knew him," she whispered. Danner gave a small, almost paternal smile. "Sometimes that's all it takes." With trembling fingers, Mia broke the seal. Inside was a single, folded sheet of old stationery. Her name was written on the front in shaky cursive. She opened it and read aloud softly, her voice cracking halfway through. "Dear Mia, if you're reading this, then I've finally taken my last walk. I hope it was painless, and if it wasn't, I'll still say it was, just to make you feel better. You. See, yesterday, you did something nobody else had done in years. You saw me. Not just my body, not just a customer. You looked at me like I mattered. You gave me a slice of pie like it was the most natural thing in the world, and you sat there like my stories meant something. You made an old man feel human again, alive. Loved, even I had no one left. I tried for years to reconnect with my daughter, but never succeeded. And so, I've decided to leave what I have, small as it may be to you. Enclosed is a key to my cottage in Marigold Hill. It's not much, just a small house with a broken fence and an overgrown garden. But it's peaceful. There's also a bank account attached to the property, enough to help you breathe a little. You deserve that. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for giving me one last good day." Hank Raleigh stared at the letter, her eyes shimmering. A heavy silence blanketed the diner until she gently set the letter down and looked at the officers. He really left all this to me?" Danner nodded. "We were surprised too. But everything checks out legally. The bank confirmed a savings account, modest but real. The deed is clean. It's all yours." "Why me?" she whispered. Officer Lowe shrugged. "Sometimes it only takes one person doing the right thing at the right time." Customers had stopped pretending not to listen. Even Jean, the cranky trucker, looked teary-eyed. "Where is the property?" she asked. "Marigold Hill, about 20 minutes north of here." It's on the edge of town, past the old mill. Kind of a forgotten place, said Danner, but it's beautiful in the fall. He handed her a small, rusted bronze key. It's paint-chipped, but still solid. It felt heavy in her hand. Take your time, he said. We'll handle the rest of the paperwork. They left without much more. And the diner slowly returned to its rhythm, but Mia didn't. She stood still behind the counter, the key in one hand, the letter in the other, her heart caught somewhere between disbelief and grief.
Yes.
Yesterday, Hank had been just another stranger who needed warmth. Today, he had changed the direction of her life. Pie Girl's got a guardian angel. Someone muttered behind her, but Mia didn't feel lucky. She felt something deeper, like she'd been chosen not for money, not for property, but for something more sacred. That evening, when her shift ended, she didn't go straight home. Instead, she told Cal she'd be late, packed a small bag, and followed the map Officer Lowe had printed for her as she drove. Rain misted against her windshield again, just like the day before. The tires crunched on gravel as she turned down a narrow lane lined with pine trees. There it was, a little cottage, set back from the road, with a picket fence leaning slightly and a sagging porch swing. The windows were fogged with age, and ivy had begun crawling up one side like nature trying to reclaim it. But it wasn't sad, it was quiet. Still, peaceful. She stepped out, her boots crunching the damp earth, and approached the front door. Key slid in, with a reluctant click dot inside. The air smelled of old wood, lavender, sachets, and something earthy. Dust danced in the sunlight, filtering through half-closed blinds. On a small wooden table by the fireplace was a single framed photo Hank and a little girl with a bright smile. Mia stared at it, heart aching. This place was filled with stories, with silence, with memories that had no one left to share. Them, until now, Mia stood quietly in the center of Hank Raleigh's living room, a silence thick with unspoken memories. The cottage was old but sturdy. The walls held that golden tint only time could give. Dust floated in sunbeams like lazy snowflakes. The furniture was modest faded floral cushions, a creaky rocking chair, a lamp with tassels and a leaning shade, but it felt warm. Familiar as she walked through the space, she ran her fingers gently along the fireplace mantel. There were only a few things on it: a small wooden carving of a bird, a cracked porcelain angel, and a photo frame. The picture inside showed a younger Hank, happier, heavier, with a woman who had a gentle smile and thick brown curls. Between them, a little girl sat on his lap, holding a garden trowel and beaming at the camera. His daughter, Mia realized, swallowing hard. There were no more photos after that. Just stillness. She made her way to the kitchen. It was small, but neat cabinets with mismatched knobs. A checked curtain over the window, a weathered recipe card stuck to the fridge with a heart-shaped magnet. It read Hank's favorite Evelyn's apple pie, extra cinnamon. No raisins. Always warm. Mia's eyes welled up. She didn't know Evelyn, but she felt like she did. Like she was part of the story now. Over the next week, Mia returned to the cottage every evening after her shift. She swept the porch, trimmed the garden back from wild disarray. A neighbor named Mrs. Cora came over with a basket of bread and a smile. "He left it to you, huh?" The older woman said gently. Mia nodded. "You're the first person who's been in that house since Evelyn died." Hank used to sit out back under the oak tree with a blanket and pie. Always looked like he was waiting for someone. Mia looked over Cora's shoulder at the backyard. The grass was tall, but she could see the silhouette of an old oak tree, its branches wide and welcoming. Beneath it sat a weathered wooden bench, half covered in leaves. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Mia walked barefoot to the oak tree. She sat on the bench and looked up. "I get it now, Hank," she whispered. "You weren't just lonely. You were still loving someone who wasn't here." She closed her eyes and sat in the quiet, letting the rustle of the leaves wrap around her like a lullaby. 3 days later, she brought Cal with her. At first, the boy was skeptical. "So wait, some guy you gave pie to just gave you a house? That doesn't happen in real life?" Mia said with a soft smile. "Because I gave without expecting anything. Maybe he needed to give something too. Cal stared at the cottage like it was from a different planet. Can we keep it? It's ours now, Mia said, placing a hand on his shoulder. And I think Hank would want us to make it a home. That weekend, they painted the front porch. Mia hung wind chimes. Cal found a small crate of garden tools in the shed and began clearing a space to plant tomatoes. Slowly, the place breathed again. The next Tuesday, exactly 1 week after Hank came into Sonny's diner, Mia woke early. She tied her hair into a ponytail, slipped into her red and Della waitress cap, and drove to the diner carrying a warm glass. Pie dish wrapped in a kitchen towel. You're baking now? Jean the trucker asked as she passed him. Special delivery, she said with a wink. After her shift, she returned to the cottage, the pie still warm in her passenger seat. She placed a plate and a fork in a basket, added a napkin, and walked it out to the oak tree. The air smelled like apples and grass. Mia set the slice of pie down on the bench beside her and sat in silence. I hope you don't mind, she whispered. I used your wife's recipe. I didn't have the right apples, and I burnt the crust a little, but I think it turned out okay. She looked up at the swaying leaves. I still don't know why you chose me. Maybe I reminded you of her. Maybe. You just wanted someone to see you before the end. But I want you to know, Hank, you've changed everything. A breeze stirred the napkin, and the wind made the chimes on the porch sing in the distance. She could almost feel him, there, sitting quietly beside her, that half smile of his, nodding like he approved. Tears pricked her eyes, but she didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. Genuinely. Every year she promised aloud. Every year, on this day, I'll bring you pie. She stood, placed a hand on the bench, and walked back toward the cottage. As she reached the porch, she turned one last time and looked at the slice sitting on the bench, steaming in the golden light. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a ritual. A memory. A thank you. That night, Mia sat on the porch with Cal, 2 mugs of cocoa between them. You miss him? He asked. I only knew him for an hour, she replied. But yeah, I do. Strange how that works. Kindness doesn't need a timeline, she said quietly. Sometimes one small act echoes forever. Cal looked thoughtful, then said, You think other people like him are out there? She smiled. I'm sure of it. They sat together in the quiet as the stars blinked awake above them. Inside, on the mantel, beside Hank's button and Evelyn's recipe card, Mia added a photo, herself, Cal, and the cottage in the background. The family Hank never found had found him in the end.